Welcome to History and Politics with Dr. Brovkin. Today, my dear friends, subscribers, and visitors to my channel, I would like to pose one question. Will Zelensky survive the ouster of his defense minister? The reason it is so important is that it may actually alter the course of the war. A political crisis in Ukraine and a de facto fight between the president and the defense minister has and may have enormous political consequences. So I would like to answer this question by considering 5 items. Number 1, who is Fedorov and what is his background? Number 2, what is he credited for accomplishing? What is he praised for? Number 3, fact check. Did it really work? Did he really accomplish what he is credited with by Western media? Number 4, why Zelensky ousted him? That needs to be explained. Number 5, who supports Fedorov in the current protests in Kiev and who supports him from the outside? And finally, the political fallout, what it means in the coming weeks of political struggle. So we'll start with the first question. Who is Fedorov? Well, he was, until yesterday, the Minister of Defense, and he was in that job for the last 6 months. And he replaced, there were several ministers of defense, but one of the most notable one before him was Mr. Zaluzhny, who was exiled to be an ambassador in London because he was getting to be popular. Because he, if elections were held today, those who support the Ukrainian regime would vote for Zaluzhny. So he is a young 35-year-old upstart with no military background whatsoever, but he's a specialist in special operations. He is a specialist in spy networks and diversion and terrorist acts and various other nefarious operations inside Russia. So he's notorious for any Russian speakers for his claim that Ukraine should be killing 30,000 Russian soldiers a month, and that was his proposal just on the eve of his appointment, how to win the war. So this is what he is. His war strategies that he wants to, what he has been conducting for the last 6 months, is in short drone warfare. So he's been credited, some like the Financial Times called him a genius. He's credited with creating the drone revolution. He's credited with creating a winning strategy, and the streak of articles in the last weeks that Ukraine has turned the page, that turned the direction of the war, that Ukraine is winning, all of this is supposedly due to Fedorov. Now, his main 2 accomplishments, if one can call it, was destroying a lot of Russian oil facilities and damaging refineries, oil refineries in Russia, and also destroying supply routes to Crimea. His plan was to destroy to destroy the bridges, the railroads, the gasoline supplies to Crimea, and that he thought, or his plan was, would bring the Russians to their knees. Now, of course, yeah, I already commented on these plans. They were tried in 2023 during the Ukrainian offensive on Crimea, and none of that worked. And of course, just even if they were able to cut the supply of Crimea with oil and gas and whatever, that would still be not enough in order to force the Russians to abandon Crimea. Now, also, Fedorov is the one who is credited with creating deep, long strikes into Russian territory. And now the drones are now flying 900, 700 every single day. But the latest reports from Russia show that all of them are intercepted. And if one or two gets through, none of them get through to a protected area of Moscow. Now, but they still do occasionally break through to oil facilities because they're quite easy to ignite, and relatively small and cheap drone can indeed deliver a serious damage to oil facilities. Now, what's also in this context, fact check. Did this strategy by Mr. Fedorov work? Well, the short answer, no, it didn't. Yes, there was a lot of damage done, and there were prices and there were queues and lines in various Russian provinces. There was damage done to Russian oil facilities, no question about it. But is that a changer, a game changer? Can that force Russia to what they say to the negotiating tables? Can it change the course of the war? The answer is resolutely no. Russia is one of the world's biggest producers of oil, and hitting a few oil refiners here and there by relatively innocuous small drones is not going to do it. But even if, like, the entire Russian oil industry was destroyed, that still wouldn't win the war. That still would not, because oil facilities and oil production makes only 15% of Russian budget. So if you shut down the entire thing, that would still not affect the war effort and the advance and the production of missiles and of the production of Russian drones. So in the best possible scenario, Mr. Fedorov's plan was just the kind of plan to deliver damage to Russia but not win the war. Now, the real revolution in defense against drones and in the drone manufacturing is, in fact, Russian, which the Western media does not want to acknowledge. The first fact, of course, is that of the hundreds of drones that are launched every single day, one or two or three get through. And even those really do damage to an apartment building or a bus or a school or a truck with gasoline, these kinds of nuisance, not really serious damage. The second fact, of course, is that the Russians have made a breakthrough in the last few weeks by producing what they call Geraň 4, which is turbo engine drone, which is more like a missile, and it is undetectable. It is an optic guided, AI guided drone, super fast, that the Ukrainian field commanders have been saying is a big game changer on the battlefield because it cannot be suppressed by traditional radio means of suppression. It is undetectable and unsuppressible. So that's a real Russian manufactured, totally Russian. Whereas the Ukrainian drones are not really Ukrainians. They come from Europe. There's nothing Ukrainian about them. And in Europe, they manufacture them with a big participation of parts that are brought from China. Okay, so this is the reality check. Now, of course, one more point. The damage is enormous in the sense that the Fedorov's campaign was, as I said, Crimea, deep penetration into Russia. And just a few days ago, the FSB, Russian intelligence service, has arrested several men who were a part of the underground network of operatives working for Ukraine. And so what they do is smuggle small drones into Russia, and then they go by train or truck way into Siberia. And this is how they struck a oil facility in Irkutsk. Just want to add to it that there's no country in the world that can protect all its oil installation everywhere from toy drones that can throw in a grenade and let oil ignite. That is extremely difficult because you cannot protect every single installation in a big country. And of course, the assassinations. It was Fedorov who led this campaign, and they killed a lot of Russian generals. Every month or two, there is a report that such and such a general was ambushed. And just yesterday, the chief engineer of the nuclear power station in Zaporozhye, Russian-held Zaporozhye, was assassinated by Ukrainian special services. So these are the major accomplishments of Mr. Fedorov. Now, why did Zelensky oust him? This is number 4 of my questions. The simple answer from Ukrainian media is that he became popular among the nationalists, among those who believe this propaganda that Ukraine is beginning to win. But more importantly, if you look at who supports him outside of Ukraine, the reports say that he has very close links to Palantir and to the high-tech or military tech companies in Russia. I'm sorry, in the United States. And with Elon Musk and with American military establishment that still wants to and does provide military help to Ukraine, and that these people do not particularly trust Zelensky in view of the quarrel he had with President Trump, and in view of his arrogance, and in view of his corruption. So Fedorov is a young, energetic star rising, and it seems like this is more preferable for them than Zelensky. In fact, Prime Minister Azarov, who was a prime minister from 2010 to 2014, recently claimed that the ouster of Fedorov is a sign that the Americans are preparing a coup d'etat against Zelensky. Now that of course cannot be verified whether it's true or not, but it is certain that the conflict between Zelensky and Fedorov has become public. And yesterday Fedorov gave a fiery speech against Zelensky and against his army commander Syrsky, whom he called a corrupt, and he charged him with poor leadership of the army and with the abuses of draft system. And of course, there was a recent scandal where an army officer had a quarrel with some civilians, and then the two guys were picked up by the army officers and brought to the headquarters of the, I believe it's 155th Brigade, and then they were executed there. And this is, a big deal within Ukraine public media. So Fedorov is capitalizing on all of this and accusing Syrsky, but through Syrsky, the commander, he's accusing Zelensky of incompetence and of the wrong strategy in the war. Now, in fact, this is not true because Fedorov fully supports, Zelensky fully supports Fedorov's methods of assassination, of terrorizing local population, of hitting the infrastructure, the electricity and the oil supply and the rest of it, as Fedorov has been doing. But the conflict is really more about influence and power. And I am inclined to think that just as with Mr. Zaluzhny, Zelensky is afraid of Fedorov and his popularity, and he wants to remove anybody who potentially could be a rival in the struggle for power, especially since Zelensky's credentials for power are very weak. His term has expired in 2024, so there's always up and down talk in Ukraine of future elections, which must be held at some point. And of course, now he's got Zaluzhny as a candidate, and he's got Fedorov now as a candidate. That is not easy to deal with. Now, in support of Fyodorov inside Ukraine, there have been mass demonstrations today, yesterday, and the day he was fired. And who are these people? Well, these are nationalists, and judging by their carton placards with handwritten, these are the same that were protesting against Zelensky's measures to suppress anti-corruption committees, which means in Ukrainian politics, these are pro-European forces who want to restrain Zelensky's spending. Now, also, this should be seen in the context of European Union seriously worried that the money that it gives to Ukraine and to Zelensky will be spent, would be stolen, would be sidetracked. And this is why the Europeans have been putting more and more insistently conditions on the money flows. The Europeans and von der Leyen, really, what they want is to produce the weapons for Ukraine, to deliver weapons to Ukraine, and to have control over the use of weapons in Ukraine. And that means that puts them in the collision course with Zelensky, because Zelensky does not want to be controlled. He wants to have access to the money, but not to be controlled. And this is the context where political elites in Ukraine have their foreign sponsors, some American, some European, but it is all in the context of struggle for power. Now, how serious is this crisis for the future of Zelensky? I think it is quite serious and not necessarily immediate. It is serious because now Zelensky has one more political enemy, and a young and an ambitious one, and the one who knows a lot of very, very important foreign dignitaries and businessmen and suppliers. And therefore, Zelensky cannot be sure that he, for example, wouldn't make a joint cause with Zaluzhny, and then in any elections they could easily beat Zelensky. For our purposes, one should conclude by saying that this feud among the elites in Ukraine is a big gift for Russia. It's a huge gift for Russia because it creates political instability. And if there is a removal of Zelensky, if there is double illegitimacy of the rulers who are not elected, this opens the door for all kinds of unexpected developments, including the collapse of the entire political establishment in Ukraine, with unforeseen consequences for Ukraine, for the war with Russia, and for political settlement that would follow. Thank you very much, and I will stop at this. And I want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel, and please look at my other playlists. And also I have audio track, which is now available on Spotify and many other platforms if you want to listen. And of course, on your screen you see my Substack if you want to read, and there will be additional material, historical material there that is not on YouTube. Goodbye, and I'll see you soon, shortly.